Hey everybody, I'm Joe. We're talking about Marvel Multiverse and we're doing another character build today, and we're going to do a battlefield controller. Here we go. Taking a look at the different power sets in Marvel Multiverse, they might stand out as lending themselves as a power set towards one particular style of gameplay. For instance, ranged weapons are obviously going to be a combat-oriented character that uses the agility stat. And when you take a look at the telepathy power set, it's not immediately as clear. The telepathy power set, first of all, is enormous, and it has a lot of stuff in it, and there's a lot of variety. There is amazing utility in it. There's a little bit of manipulation in it. It does have a mind control power in it, which I've said previously on this channel is the hardest thing to use in this game. We won't really be getting into it today. And it also has some pretty great battlefield control. Remember, battlefield control is the process of removing action economy from your enemies. When you tank, you are removing action economy from your enemies by directing it towards yourself. And in this way, tanking and battlefield control are very similar. Since Marvel Multiverse does not have any abilities in it currently that force your enemies to attack you, or at least encourage your enemies to attack you, battlefield control and tanking are really the same thing, as I've argued previously. So when we take a look at the power set, and when we take a look at the battlefield control inside of telepathy, there's some great stuff in here. I can imagine a character that uses telepathy in order to protect the party and make the party nearly unkillable, or at least untargetable. And that is what we're building today. So yes, we're doing a tank build. We are going to use telepathy in order to protect our allies and make the action economy of our enemies nearly useless. I'm really excited about where this particular build is going. We're going to have fun getting there. And I think that this is a character that actually comes online very early, which is great. Now, I don't know what you would call this character, and I struggled with the name. So for the moment, I'll be calling today's character Shelter from the Storm. We are going to start with our occupation, and just to mix things up, I went with Educator. You certainly don't have to go this way, but I think it's nice. Educator gives us a few traits: connections for community, font of information, and presence. But I think the idea of a high intelligence or logic character that's there to really defend allies and isn't really much of a combatant, so to speak, I think that buttresses well with Educator. But mechanically, let's look at these traits. Connections for community is pretty wide open. It means that we have a community of people that we are connected to. You're going to want to work this out with your narrator, but you're going to have a group of people you can connect with in order to get information. As always, great trait. Font of information is truly an amazingly powerful trait, but it's not often taken because it gives us an edge on any logic roll having to do with knowledge. Most characters do not bump logic in this game. There's only 2 power sets that utilize logic, but we are in one of them. So for us, this is great, and it's so open-ended. We get an edge on all logic checks having to do with knowledge. That's it. That is an enormous opportunity for you to be able to gather information. Next, we're going to get presence. This is a ribbon feature for us tops. We are not boosting ego on this character, and so having an edge on ego checks that involve getting people to voluntarily do things for us, it might work, it might not. I don't see this character being a face of the party very much at all, but it might come in useful from time to time. Hopefully you've got a better talker in the group. There is no particular origin that I'm going to recommend for this character. I'm going to give you one that I thought might be fun because I have not used it before, but mechanically it is not relevant to the build itself. If you wanted to go a different way, I think that'd be totally fine. I also think that we would have to skip some of the lore inside of this origin, but I thought Symbiote might be amazing. Symbiote says that we have bonded to another creature. Now, Typically, when this happens, the powers we get afterwards are from the Spider Powers power set, which we're not going into on this character. And so you'd have to talk with your narrator about having this be a different type of symbiote. But I think it'd be fascinating for the symbiote to attach maybe to our nervous system or our brain stem, and that gives us the ability to read people's minds. It opens up our mind to everything else around us. It's a cool origin story. It might be a lot of fun, but if it doesn't work for your version of the build, it's fine. It really is not going to matter too much. Let's go ahead and do point buy. This character is all about the logic score. And since it is a tank build, I want to get my defenses really good on this character, but I am going to dump my melee stat. There's nothing I'm doing on this character that's going to require me to be physically capable. I'm going to be moving everything with my mind anyway, so we're going to take a -4 in melee, 2 points in agility, 2 points in resilience, 1 point in vigilance, 4 points in logic, nothing in ego. With powers, we're going to have out of the gate defenses of a 6 for melee, rank 1's going to hurt, 12 for agility and resilience, 11 for vigilance, and 14 for ego and logic. That is with powers. Let's look at some powers at rank 1. We need to take Brilliance 1. This is going to give us a +1 to any attack that is made using our logic score. Not a big thing for what we're doing, but importantly, it's going to give a +1 to any non-attack roll that we make with logic. A lot of stuff that we're going to get utilizes non-attack rolls, so Brilliance is going to be important for us. Next, we're going to take Integrity. This is what allowed us to use our logic defense for our ego defense. You, by the way, might do this differently. You might take Integrity at rank 2 and take Evasion at rank 1. I certainly wouldn't blame you. I leaned into this because I think that it fits the story of the character, being mental first and physical second. I think it fits the story better, but it is actually not mechanically the strongest choice. So just a flavor thing that I'm doing, you could mix it around. We're going to take now the root of really the entire telepathy power set, and that is telepathic link. This is a pretty meaty power, but it's super cool. We can communicate telepathically with one person at a time that we have met before. So they don't have to be near us at the moment we use telepathic link, which is pretty cool. There is no limit to the distance that we can use this communication, and there's no real limit to the type of communication. It can be visual, it can be memories, it can be verbal. It is any type of communication that we really want. So a lot of flexibility. If the person does not want a telepathic link, then we make a logic check, not an attack roll, so Brilliance counts. And then we can force the link for some short period of time. If it's a fantastic success, that character cannot shut us out of their mind for the rest of the day, which is pretty useful. You can also use this to communicate with your allies. So if your allies split up, this costs no focus. We can make a telepathic link, get information, and then use the power again later. And that allows us to now, at rank 1, constantly communicate with our team independent of where we all are. Very useful. Next, we're going to take ESP. This is going to allow us, when we're walking into a dangerous environment, to know where hidden people are. Your narrator will not be able to hide enemies from you right away at rank 1 when you take ESP. We make a logic check, there's that check again, so Brilliance counts, and this is compared against the vigilance defense of any enemies within 100 spaces per rank. Upon a success, we know where they are. Upon a fantastic success, we know the powers that they have. So this is going to allow you to make sure you're not walking into a trap. Very useful. The trait we're going to take is Battle Ready. I have to take it on every character. You knew this was coming. This gives us 30 additional points of focus. We're not spending focus right now, but I never want to run out of focus on this character because a lot of the really cool stuff that we're doing will expend focus, so we kind of need this, and we're just going to pick it up right now. All right, so at rank 1, we really have no battlefield control. So we're removing 0 action economy points from the board. Kind of disappointing. Our average defense score is an 11.5. So what are we doing during combat? I think at this rank, maybe you get yourself a gun. You have a reasonable ability to shoot somebody with a ranged weapon. You will be ditching this weapon at the next rank. But right now, we actually don't do a lot in combat. Let's do point buy for rank 2. We're going to bring agility, resilience, and vigilance to a 3 and logic to a 5. With powers, we will now have defense scores of 13 for melee, agility, resilience, and vigilance, and 15 for the mental stats, ego, and logic. We are not going into a new power set. We're going to go and pick up a lot of stuff in telepathy, but first we're going to pick up evasion. This allows us to use our agility defense for melee attacks, and that's why our melee defense score just went up tremendously. The next power we're going to take is Command. This is the first of our battlefield control, and Command is so good. It costs 5 points of focus, and we can only use it against someone with whom we have established a telepathic link. We make a logic check, not an attack roll, against the target's logic defense. Most enemies are going to have bad logic defense, and we currently get a +7 to this roll. So it's going to work more often than not. Upon a success, we give them an order and they must comply with their next action. Upon a fantastic success, we gain an edge the next time we use this power against the same target, which of course we're going to do. If the check involves harming someone, we have trouble on the check, and if it involves harming themselves, we have double trouble. And I think this is one of those powers where you really want to take signature attack. We can't do that for a while on this character for reasons that you'll see, but that is a tempting thing to do. Please remember you can only have one telepathic link up at a time, and so it takes an action to do a new telepathic link and another action to do a command. And so realistically switching this from one enemy to another is a little bit difficult to do, but it certainly is something that is possible. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your own action economy. Next, we're going to take Cloak. This costs 5 points of focus, and it does require our concentration. And we use a mirage to block our presence from the minds of people within 20 spaces per rank. Anything electronic can still pick us up, but we are effectively invisible from anybody we don't want to have see us. And if they want to try and find us, they have to make a check against our logic defense, which is really good. But the real reason we wanted to take Cloak is because it's the prerequisite for the big thing that we want at this rank, which is Cloak Group. Cloak Group requires our concentration and costs 10 points of focus, but now we can cloak our allies from the minds of our enemies. There's some really cool interactions here that I'd like to point out. First of all, we can affect one other person per each rank. So right now that's 3 people, including ourselves, and at next rank it'll go up to 4, including ourselves. Our allies do have to be within 10 spaces of us in order for this to work. If they go farther away than that, it does fade, but they are blocked from the minds of people who are within 20 spaces per rank that we have obtained. Still, electronic devices can pick us up, so if you're fighting a bunch of androids in this campaign, you're gonna have some problems. If someone tries to find one of these hidden allies, they have to make a check against our logic defense, not our allies. But importantly, there is no restriction to what the characters can do when they are cloaked, meaning we can now have our allies be effectively invisible and attack our enemies, and they do not lose their, I'm calling it effective invisibility. They're simply blocked from the minds of people, but effective invisibility. It's not lost. So now your allies are unseen and attacking your enemies. It's amazing. And of course, we're going to take Brilliance 2, which gives us a +2 to our logic checks. That's why we had a +7 at this rank to the roll. Our trait has to be Surprising Power. Technically, Cloak Group requires that you are rank 3, but we have met all other requirements. So as I've done many times on this channel, we're going to use Surprising Power as our trait in order to bypass the rank requirement. In order to take Cloak Group, we've met all of the other requirements. So how do we calculate the action economy that I'm reducing? I'm going to say that my allies being invisible is going to eat up action economy, an action and a reaction for each one of my allies that enemies might try to attack. And then I'm still going to be able to use my action subsequently during combat to issue commands to one other enemy. Remember, this command only gets trouble if it involves harming someone, but I could just have them do push-ups, and that eats away one action economy. It does not eat the reaction or the movement, only their action. So all of this together, and during an ideal round of combat, we will remove 7 action economy points from the board, and we are going to have average defense score of 13.6 while doing so. All right, let's do point buy for rank 3. We're going to bring agility to a 5, vigilance to a 5, logic to a 6, and my resilience is going to sit at a 3. So I'm going to have defenses of 15 for melee and agility and vigilance, 13 for resilience, 16 for logic and ego. We're going into a new power set at this rank. I mentioned in a build I did a few weeks ago that the weather control power set is really a battlefield control power set, and that means it does play quite well into a character that wants to remove action economy, so we're going into weather control. Importantly, you'll remember that the control weather powers at level 3 and level 4 allow you to use some powers as reactions that are inside of elemental control. Well, we're not going into elemental control, so I really only need 2 powers from the weather control power set, and that is control weather 1 and control weather 2. Let's just take a look at the more powerful one. Control Weather 2 costs 10 points of focus, and it makes sure that when we create a storm that is 5 miles across per character rank, all ranges and speeds are cut in half. So we are now going to cripple our enemy's ability to use ranged weapons and to move, and we're basically invisible while we do so. We're going to take Brilliance 3. Brilliance 3 gives us a +3 to all of those important logic checks. So when we're trying to issue a command or do a telepathic link, we now have a +9 to the roll, which is awesome. And we're going to take Sturdy 1. This is a character that's a little bit of a glass cannon, which is a little bit strange for a tank build, but we now have 1 damage reduction. So if something actually can see us and hit us, we're going to at least take a little bit less damage. I considered taking the investigation trait at this rank, and if you wanted to, it would be a reasonable one to take. It makes sense on this character, but we're going to take signature attack for command. So now we automatically get an edge when issuing a command. Mostly that is there so that we bypass any trouble if we command somebody to attack one of their allies. During an ideal round of combat, we've made our entire party invisible. We probably are going to do that way before combat because concentration lasts a long time. Then we're going to bring up a storm, and then that's going to eat into the range and the movement of our enemies. And we are going to, of course, be issuing commands thereafter in order to destroy their action economy. If we pull all of that off, we're going to remove, by my calculation, 12 action economy points off the board. That is keeping in mind that now we are able to cloak ourselves and 3 allies. And I am counting that this is going to be a party of 4 because that is the average size party in TTRPGs. All of that going off, by the way, we are going to have an average defense score of 15. Let's do point buy rank 4. We're going to bring agility to a 7, vigilance to a 7, and logic to a 7. This is going to give us defense scores of 17 for everything except resilience. And resilience is going to be a 13. So definitely glass cannon status here. We're going to take Brilliance 4, which gives us a +4 to all of those tasty logic checks that we are doing. So at this rank, we get a +11 to our command rolls and telepathic link rolls. We're going to be steamrolling through those with very little difficulty. At this rank, you have a choice. We could either improve our telepathy, and that's going to give us more utility, or we could improve our defense, and that's going to make us even sturdier in combat. If you find that enemies are getting around your group invisibility, then you might go into a new power set at this rank. I am going to lean into the utility of this character, and I'm going to delay going into a new power set for rank 5. So vary this however you think fits your game better. First, we are going to pick up Telepathic Network. So now, with 5 points of focus and our concentration, we are able to make our entire group now telepathically linked. There is no limit to the distance that can be used to communicate, but they must be willing. And of course, we're assuming that our party is willing. Next, we're going to take Memory Blip. This is just too much fun to not take on this character, and if you have used Memory Blip in game, I would love to hear what shenanigans have happened with it, because it's truly, truly fun. We make a logic check, not attack roll, against somebody with whom we've established a telepathic link, and then we have them forget something that happened in the last hour. That's it. There is so much fun to be done with this. First of all, the logic check is against their logic defense, which is not going to be great for almost all villains. We now have, as I said, a plus 11 to this roll, which is pretty great. Upon a success, the memories are forgotten. Upon a fantastic success, the target has trouble on checks to recover such memories in the future. But be warned that if the target is given in the future a reason to be able to remember the events, they can still remember them, but something has to trigger that memory. Next, we're going to take Edit Memory. This is an insanely fun power, and I want to use this in game so much. But we are able to now edit the memories of somebody with whom we have made a telepathic link. We can erase a chunk of the target's memory, and we can insert entirely new memories, but the target number on this effect is based on how complex the new memories are, and is set not by something mechanically, but by your narrator. So the more you try to push the envelope, the harder the check is going to be. Of course, this is a logic check against the logic defense, so you're going to be able to do this more often than not. And for a game that deals with subterfuge and non-combat things and infiltration missions, this is just too much fun. Next, we are going to take Mind Reading. I wanted to take this earlier, but I needed to get command and weather control and all that stuff really locked away. But now we're able to read people's minds. This lasts for 1 round, so it does not go for a very long period of time, but it does not cost focus. You can just do it again and again. We make a logic check against logic defense. Upon a success, we can read surface thoughts. On a fantastic success, we can ask a single simple question, and we will get an answer from the target's mind. So now you are an incredible interrogator as well. Next, we're going to take Quick Learner. Now, Quick Learner we're going to use in an interesting way, because the way it mechanically works isn't quite the same thing that the name implies. So let's get into it. With Quick Learner, if we fail an action check, we have an edge on that check if we try it again on our next turn, okay? So it does not need to be a new thing that we're trying, thus implied by Quick Learner. It just needs to be a failed action check, and our next action on our next turn, we try the exact same thing again. Please note, everything we're doing is checks, not attack rolls. When we issue a command, when we establish a telepathic link, when we try to edit memories, when we try to make people forget memories, all of those are action checks, meaning we now have a built-in way of failing and then gaining an edge the next time we do it. Every time we do one of those checks, it's with an incredible bonus to the roll as well. From here on out, our tanking and battlefield control is not going to change very much. We're going to be removing 12 points of action economy from the board if we have group cloak up and control weather up, and we're issuing commands. And our average defense score at this rank is going to be 16.3. Let's go ahead and do point buy for rank 5. Agility, vigilance, and logic we're going to bring to an 8, and we're going to bring resilience to a 5, finally giving us a little bit more hit points. Hopefully you're not getting hit very much, but we are going to solve the issue of getting hit at this rank. We are going into a new power set, and we're going into phasing. I wanted something that would give us utility and the ability to defend ourselves. And phasing is kind of perfect for it. And of course, we need to pick up the power Phase Self. Phase Self is an action on our turn, but allows us to become incorporeal. And while incorporeal, nothing can physically affect us. We cannot physically affect anybody around us, and we can move through walls as if they were not there. So now we're a great infiltrator. But importantly, while we are incorporeal, we can't shoot somebody, we can't punch somebody, but we can issue them commands. For command to work, they just need to be able to hear us. So we can now be incorporeal and issuing commands to our enemies. Very useful. Next, we're going to take Quick Phase. Quick Phase allows us to go into our incorporeal state as a reaction when we are targeted with an attack. That's going to be really important. Please note, because we're not damage oriented, we're really not using our reactions on this character, which is weird for me. But now, our first reaction when we're targeted can be to go incorporeal. Absolutely brilliant, and we can still do all of the cool stuff we want to do while incorporeal. So now you're basically unhittable. We're going to take Uncanny 1 now, which is going to give us a 1 damage reduction to any attack that targets our focus. We can't be physically hit any longer in combat, so our defense score almost doesn't matter, but we absolutely can be hit with focus attacks, which would cripple our ability to issue commands and to cloak our allies. So reducing that type of damage is actually now going to be the most important thing that we can do. Next, we're going to take Mind Interrogation. This is just the better version of mind reading, and it costs 5 points of focus. It still only lasts for 1 round, but we do a logic check against the logic defense of our enemies, and upon a success, we get to ask a simple question, and upon a fantastic success, we get complex information. So this just is the better end result of mind reading, which is very cool. The trait we're going to take is eidetic memory. I can't imagine a logic character that I would not want to take this on. If we forget anything that our character has heard before, we as the player can simply ask the narrator, and they kind of have to tell us if it is information that our character would have run across. Your table might have a narrator that reminds the player of information or not, so the usefulness of this does depend on the table, but now we are guaranteed to have all relevant information at our fingertips. During combat, our group is invisible, there's a storm going, we're issuing commands, and we're going to remove 12 points of action economy from the board. Our average defense score is 17.5, but that almost doesn't matter because the only type of attack that could even hit us would target our focus. Let's bring this home at rank 6. We're going to bring agility, vigilance, and logic to a 9, bring resilience to a 7. Now we're going to have defenses of 19 for everything other than resilience and 17 for resilience. At this point, the world's kind of your oyster. Take stuff that seems cool. I will be grabbing Uncanny 2, 3, and 4. So now we have a 4 damage reduction for any attack that targets our focus, and if anything targets us physically, we are simply incorporeal and it can't hurt us anyway. So no, this character doesn't have the highest defense scores, and this character has 1 level of damage reduction for physical health, but it almost doesn't matter. At this point, you could take more powers in telepathy. I think I've got all of the utility I really want out of here, but Fool and Grand Fool are fantastic. Borrow Senses is fantastic. So there are some interesting utility powers that you might want to go into, but I'm going to pick up 2 more powers in phasing. First, I'm going to take Phase Object. Phase Object costs 5 points of focus, and it's going to allow me to touch something and make it intangible. The object can be up to my rank in sizes larger than I am. So now I can make buildings incorporeal, which is pretty cool. Lastly, we're going to take Phase Walk. Now when we are phasing, we can spend 5 points of focus and we can move vertically through buildings. We can walk on water. Our ability to move while phasing is now completely unencumbered. So it just gives you a little bit more mobility while you are phasing. During combat, we have a storm going, everybody is cloaked, we're issuing commands, we're removing 12 points of action economy from the board, and we have an average defense score of 18.6. So, this character mechanically is not as good of a battlefield controller as the Spider Tank. He's not. The Spider Tank was averaging 14.5 action economy points removed in a round of combat. This character averages a little bit over 9. As far as defense score, the Spider Tank had an average defense score of 15.6, and with this character, it's an average of 15.4. I would argue the actual defense score here is straight up better because we are not visible to our enemies, and by mid-game, we are incorporeal as well. So the Spider Tank was able to remove action economy better, I would argue, but this character has way more utility, is still removing a good amount of action economy, is using enemies against each other, and is doing so much other cool stuff. Reading minds, editing memories, just doing awesome stuff that you're going to love talking about and sharing the stories of with your gaming group. What's really fun here is that we only needed a few powers to get everything for battle that we really wanted. And then we were able to spend the rest of our time on some really fun utility things. If you wanted to leave telepathy and go into a different form of utility, that would be great. That would be absolutely doable. If you wanted to stay in telepathy and get even more out of it, that's doable. There's so much that you can do because we have extra space from mid-game on to just fill the character with whatever seems like fun. And I love utility characters because in the end, a utility character solves so many problems and has stuff to do outside of combat. It's kind of frustrating playing a character that's combat only because only a third of the game is combat. But this character will always have something to do and is really fun in and out of combat. I think it's great. Anyway, that's the build for the week. YouTube's made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them, and I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.